Well, so as you'll notice, like, going around these pieces, I think what you'll notice first and foremost is my obsession with consumption, and I think the conflicting feelings we all have with it. On one hand, it being this beautiful stream of shit that we, drink from constantly, and it's free flowing in one hole out the other hole. And there's something really beautiful about that eternal stream, like in the passive absorption that we all inherit within this space. I think that within that there's like inspiration to be found. There's all sorts of fucking crazy ideas, and I think we're all evolving in an insane pace because of it. Now, on the other hand, it's also you can almost feel formative memories dissolving with the inconsequential shit that people are posting. Like, how it's just kind of funny to think that we all wake up every morning and we have these like super hyper transactional like GMs with a little coffee mug, and all the while we're just kind of like losing touch, I think, in some ways with our past and with the things that we've experienced, because there's this obsession with constantly moving forward and constantly, you know, attaching to the next thing. And again, the state of perpetual transaction just it's exhausting, and it kills fucking brain cells, and it kills the ability to kind of cherish the times that we are, living in, and the times that you experienced before. So I would say that that's kind of the theme for these overall pieces. So with that idea of consumption, and with that idea of horrific descent, essentially, like, I consider myself in some ways a documentarian of our demise, in our kind of transition into an insect incapable of doing anything but transacting. So with most of these pieces, what you'll see is like that, but then ratcheted up to 1,000 degrees in terms of like recognizing that prospect in real world situations. So where that consumption happens in the real world. And so, like, I'll take you over, for instance, to this piece, which I'm really obsessed with. Well, this wall, I think, is maybe the best wall in the place. On the right hand side, you'll see a couple of different pieces. The piece all the way to the right is this piece that I made about county fairs. So, like, growing up, and I think many people experience this, county fairs were an insanely important part of my culture growing up, and like the lack of anything to do in my hometown, those were the height of it, right? You would get drunk on steel reserves, and you would go to the county fair, and you would wait for the fattest pig to be chosen, awarded a ribbon, and then slaughtered in front of everybody to be later barbecued. And then, like, sometimes ride and then sometimes ride, that spinning gravitron or the zipper, those couple rides that were just more or less throw up machines, and just, hastily built overnight. There was no safety regulations. It was run by, lifetime alcoholics who were streaming porn on their phones. And it was just like, or not at that time on their phones. They would have like a fucking DVD player and just be watching porn while these rides were running. And it's just like, I think that in some ways I look back on those times really fondly, and in other times I look back on those things and I think, like, what the fuck were we all thinking, and what were our parents thinking at the time? It's just really, really funny to reflect on those. But there's fucked up parts about it, but I think that there's beauty in that madness too, and there's beauty in that freedom, and in just kind of the absolute the absolute kind of abandonment of self that you had in those fucking county fairs. Like, you just be out there wandering around drunk. You're not looking at your phone. You're not like worried about some strategy meeting, or like, I mean, it was before I had a job, so it was high school and stuff, and in grade school in some capacity. But they were more carefree times at those fairs, and so I look back on those very fondly. And like the poems and the prose that I write for each of these pieces, you'll really, really notice that I delve into deep nostalgia and things that I was feeling at a certain time while I was making those. And I think that's the funny part, and why I've been so excited that so many people like have found reprieve, or similar sadness, or some type of shared memory within the pieces that I make, because, like, for a long time it just felt like I was making this stuff and that I was somehow the only person experiencing it. And then, since since all this shit has happened, it's like, oh my God, we're all from piece of shit hometowns that we wanted to get out of, but there's also conflicting feelings there, like where of course I miss, wandering around parking lots, drinking and with my friends, and just being kind of aimless and stupid again at county fairs, or like, or discount fireworks stores or anything like that. So it's really, a lot of these pieces are wrestling with those two kind of feelings that you have about it. But yeah, the this kind of shared experience we have from our hometown is really something that I've grown to love and be very fascinated by, throughout the space. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So the meat theme, kind of is a couple of different things. So one of them has to do with that prized hog and it waiting for slaughter, and us not being all that different than that thing. We sit there consuming and fattening, and then we just have a bulging artery waiting to be slit by some aimless butcher, and bled out and to feed the next generation of lifeless fucks that are trying to get out, or whatever. And that is part of why I'm so obsessed with beef. And then the other part is just the absurdity of beef in itself. Like, it's just a hilarious substance. It's like, all right, we're taking an entire animal and smashing it through this grinder, and then we're dyeing it pink and then wrapping it in plastic, and that's how it's presented to you. And then you get in there and you mash it around in your hands and you form little patties with it, and then you serve it at a like a barbecue for something not worth celebrating, and most of it's just discarded. So it's like, I just find that to be hilarious, in many ways, and that's just kind of my obsession there. And so, like with the brothcos, like I wrote a really poignant prose with those, where it's more or less just meat begets meat. Meat is creation and destruction, and like, in the end, we're all meat. We're all that pulverized bag of parts waiting to be consumed. So, that's the part that I'm obsessed with there. It's funny because I think in the pieces themselves, what you'll notice is that although there is grotesque things happening in the pieces, and sagging skin, and deteriorating minds and severed limbs, the people in the pieces themselves are very happy, or a bare minimum indifferent. So if you look at this piece over here with this last selfie, where this is owned by OG, this hell is real, where he's taking a last selfie with this guy's severed arm that's laying in a hospital bed. There's happiness in that relief and in that release. And similarly to this Cracker Barrel piece, the consumption here is happiness. So like, there is a portrayal of that I love those times, and I love fast casual consumption, and the obsession I have with it is conflicting. So like you were saying, it's like, is there disgust, is there admiration? I would say honestly it leans more towards admiration. Like, I fucking love fast casual stuff. I love getting drunk at Buffalo Wild Wings and fucking eating 2 dozen wings via suppository, or going to Ponderosa and just getting fucking annihilated on Sutter Homes and eating a knuckle steak. So I find there to be beauty in these things, but I also really enjoy portraying like the sickening nature of what we are becoming, ultimately. And so a mix of both the nostalgic part of it, which are generally like in the prose that I write with the pieces, and then with the like kind of futuristic elements, where that's more like documentarian of what's happening during our times. Yeah, the last two, the last piece I think may have been Cracker Barrel Euthanasia. One great day over on this left hand side, where essentially it was this fictitious world that so I was eating in a Cracker Barrel, and I was just thinking, like, we're not all that far off from them offering a euthanasia option, where you can go in there with an elderly person, and have them happily execute and commemorate the moment with a Polaroid camera, and a full recording doc, and everyone can celebrate the ending of a great life over a sheet cake. And so you can kind of see how things like continue to skew. So I'm a little worried about where humanity might be going in the future, because my my version is like always 10 times what it is out there, and there's a possibility that 10 times whatever it is going to be like too fucked up for consumption, pretty much.
Totally. I love how your personal experiences like Cracker Barrel have influenced your artistic perspective here. So is the series done for? Or are there any more pieces coming into the legalized ground beef, or is it wrapped up now?
No, there probably will be, honestly. Like I do like to think about this thing as something that can live over however many years it has to live in order to document the story that needs to be told, like, and I think, looking at these all in the same place is really interesting and really fucking cool because you can tell that they're all born from the same universe and they're all kind of characters that are living in this fucked up town and doing fucked up stuff and wrestling with blowing off thumbs from a bad firework, or playing Russian roulette at a Dave and Buster's to try to save a marriage. All of these things are kind of just shit that I feel like has to be explored, and I'm just so happy other people feel that way too, because like I'd be making this shit anyways, but it feels so much better to be able to share it with people who see that and are able to comprehend that there's like beauty and destruction, in that destruction is a form of creation, and that like there's shit that can appear grotesque but be kind of profoundly deep and very considerate and elegant in some ways. Like that's the part that I'm super grateful for, is when collectors read the prose with the piece and say like, shit, like this is a immensely sad piece, whereas on the surface level it's like, of course, this like Wally lookalike is fucking this person in a butterfly fuck swing outside of an Applebee's on Dollarita night. But when you look at the story behind this piece, it's immensely, immensely sad, almost unbearably so. And I find writing those to be a truly special part of realizing the piece as a whole. It's a combination, so they both fuel each other. Words fueling brushstroke and brushstroke fueling words, because really, yeah, really, it's the only way that I think it can tell a completely cohesive story in many ways, because otherwise it's like you're just illustrating something that's already done, which is not as fun as creating something that is that again, feeds off of each other like two parasites trying to reach orgasm. That is what I get after, and that's like the funnest fucking part, is going back and forth and back and forth, and then when you finally see the piece and that last line is written to it, and like I always had the last line be as brutal as humanly possible. It's the biggest relief ever, honestly. And it's funny because in the past and some of the other interviews I've talked about, like I think I would rot from the inside out if I couldn't evacuate this onto a page or paper or iPad, and if I couldn't write. I don't know what I would be like as a human as a human being, because this shit can't live inside you, really. So I'm just so happy to be able to have an avenue to blast this out and broadcast it, so I don't have to sit there and rot with it. So it's pretty nice.
Might not be.
Yeah, there's a couple that I really love. This one over here, the Dave and Buster's piece, combined with this, I forget what the piece is even called, but the discount fireworks store. I find these two to be both hilarious and perhaps
The one in the corner,
the one in
right?
the one in the right hand corner, yeah, to be hilarious
Yeah.
and maybe the most tragic out of all of them. Documenting somebody whose entire world is selling discount fireworks, and the happiness that they experience from blowing their thumbs off with those fireworks. And it was this whole kind of, I don't know, this whole kind of, what is it, like, just web of emotion experience when you go to those places, and you see somebody with a huge lip of grizzly chewing just dribbling all over the sales, and there's knives for sale there, and there's fucking bootleg porns for sale, and there's just something really uniquely rad about what a free for all it is. And I think that, like I was talking about before, similarly to like our world, I love that nothing is sacred and that everything is fuckable, and that, we all just fucking get after it no matter what it is, and everyone can carve out these unique little veins and arteries to swim in. And so I find that those places are just so glorious. Crazy Kaplan's is my muse. Like Crazy Kaplan's and like the Hell is Real sign and all those personal injury lawyer signs on the highway. Like I'm obsessed with that shit. I fucking love it. And then the Dave and Buster's piece was, and the Dave and Buster's piece, like I just thought about how hilarious and sad it would be if they launched a new game, and the new game was Russian roulette, and that you would play it to save your marriage. And if both of you ended up living, your marriage could proceed on, and if one of you died, then the marriage would mercifully be over with, I suppose. So that piece. And then the other piece that's kind of missing from here that I think is my other favorite is the one it's the one where they're scratching lottery tickets in an IHOP Express, and one of the people is sniffing the losing ticket, so trying to get a high from, somebody else's lost ticket, essentially. I found that to be really fucking sad, and one of my favorites as well. Yeah, it can take, well, it's funny, like, some of them don't take as long. The conceptualizing of them take a really long time because I have to figure out, like,
Right.
everything that I want in the piece, like the specificities behind the tiny little details and accoutrements that function here. Like if you look into this Applebee's piece, the jars upon jars of unscented Vaseline, or the life alerts that aren't working, or the Blue Moon toaster oven that has a fork in it. So there's the concepts behind these things take a really really long time. Then the execution, it just kind of varies, right? Like if I have the idea fully solidified, and I've started writing the piece, and letting that kind of again dictate the brush or the stylist, and they can move along pretty fast. But some of them take a really fucking long time. And then I've also been expanding these, and what I think is really cool is I usually have a physical version of these that just varies immensely from the digital version, but it tells the same story. Like they look different, but there's the same emotion instilled within those things. And so I find that to be a really fun exploration too. My obsession is to continue to bask in the absurd and the mad. Really, it's a place that I find joy in, and it's a place I think other people find joy in too. So I don't think I'll ever relieve that, because it's so fun, and it's like what I truly enjoy creating. Like I'm at my happiest when I'm communicating depravity and communicating madness, and kind of unfathomable circumstances in many cases. And also, again, documenting how fucking stupid we all are is like one of my favorite things in the world. That like cracks me up, because like I'm an idiot too. So like I'm in the mix of this stuff at Buffalo Wild Wings, eating wings via suppository, or drinking a fucking 100-ounce Blue Moon or something. So like these are things that I love and I embrace, and I'll continue to do that. But honestly, I think most importantly, to continue to explore like the depths of writing as well, right? Like I never want to give that up, and I always want to continue to explore the super like nuanced and deep side of loss, of grief. My pieces have to do with dementia, and like the rise and fall of hospital sheets, and the quiet hum of monitors in hospitals, and kind of just the sadness experienced within there, on personal experiences, wrestling with what that all means, and like the inevitability of our own demise. I think all those things are on the table, and really, I think I have a relentlessness about telling that story, and so I'm going to keep just exploring what is both interesting to me, and just that needs to be told, ultimately. My website is ontie-altai.com, and there's a story called 615 North Michigan that like gives you a really it's it was really tough to write. It was probably one of the hardest pieces that I've ever written in my life, and it's this kind of surrealist look at what happened, and the emotions experienced within there and stuff. So if people want to give that a read, it's pretty brutal, honestly. Not definitely not a winter read, I would say. Well, I guess definitely not a summer read either. It's just kind of unreadable in many ways, but it's a very, very, it's one of my favorite pieces I've ever written. So it would be cool if people check that out. But if reading's not your thing, that's cool too. Uh, you know, it, you're again, we sit here and we create and we transact and we eat and we shit and we're in this constant state of indigestion or digestion, and there's no way to kind of take a step back and like think about what impact we have, or anything like that. And so to have my pieces are kind of like the meat inspire such a sickening and beautiful world, is really fucking cool. So I really appreciate you making this shit. It's awesome, dude. I'm gonna be chilling in here. I'm gonna be huffing some duster and maybe make a fresh batch of jankum and be chilling in here tonight. So I'm stoked. The absurdist kind of satire piece that I made and activated in Marfa, Texas, with a fully fuckable flea market that people had to come and haggle drugs and knives for physical brothcos through a glory hole. So yeah, it was a wild, like, I that's one of the things that I don't think I've still unpacked, and it was like a month ago. But it was, yeah, I dressed up like Rick from the show Pawn Stars and essentially just stood behind this huge thing in this sweaty gallery space, and everyone was rip shit drunk, just like trading, Adderalls for a glass menagerie, or like a fucking, Cutco knife for a bag of mushrooms, or somebody had a full clip. Somebody had like a gun clip that they traded for a Friendtech flashlight that I'd made. So there were some bizarre trades going on, and the flashlights were a huge hit. So I'd made these two custom flashlights, and for people who aren't familiar, those are flashlights, not flashlights. And so they're these like fuckable flashlights essentially that are configured for very lonely men to indulge in, with like, it was so funny. So I made a couple of those that just said like, create nothing, consume everything, and then I made a friend tech one with the hopes that, like, you could have your utility be to mail that thing around to all your friends and kind of share the machine washable glory. Yeah, you know what? This ended up being, it's funny, it was a really special project in many ways, because not only did it kind of examine the absurdity of art creation and collecting and like gallery and viewing itself, but it's celebrated how fucking insane it all is, and like the madness of it all. And that was why the fully fuckable flea market was there to accompany it. It's like, again, the prospect that nothing is sacred, everything is fuckable, everything is open for consumption. All our altar is, the hell is real sign, or the injury lawyer billboards. Like, it's an anything goes world, and it was meant to kind of be a physical manifestation of that, with the flashlights, with the unscented Vaseline shared jar, and the glory hole that people had to reach their hand into to grab mint tokens. And I worked hard as fuck on it too. Like, I painted 30 of these things, then we trained an AI model to mimic how I painted them. But then I think the thing that I wrote for the series itself is probably the most important part. So I wouldn't mind. It's like, it'll take like 2 seconds if I could read that. This has to do with the Beef Brothko series, and it kind of encompasses the overall feeling and what the series was meant to communicate. So there is no abstract or figurative or method or revolution or artists or collectors for that matter. And most of what we make or acquire will be mercifully forgotten in the puncture holes distributed by dull bayonets from a war that was never fought, buried in a sea of premium pornography, or suffocated by the listless Novocaine drip leaking from unhealing hangnails. But there is meat and flies. There is always meat. There is that. And flies that satisfy their carnal urges in the pulverized existence of a beast born to bleed and feed. These strokes document the joyful moments in the slaughterhouse, the routine passings, the hooves and snouts and skin and bones, and cherished memories becoming mere runoff sweat into drains to lubricate the purposeless gears again. There is comfort in creation, even if it's destruction. One more round is needed, one final churn, until the next one. There is happiness in meat, there is that. And the Rothko thing was really funny, because like people asked me, yeah, is Rothko a big inspiration? And I said, like, fuck no. I don't, like, where I'm from, there was a fucking RV Hall of Fame. There wasn't any art museums or anything. So like, the first time I saw Rothko was, I think, at Kohl's, looking at a Joey Fatone crock pot. It was like next to it was a print of a fucking Rothko. So it's not like, yeah, like I don't really know anything about Rothko. And I think that the hilarity was, I became obsessed with the prospect of him thinking about me in his grave or wherever in an afterlife that doesn't exist, and thinking about a person in Indiana painting ground beef versions of his paintings in a basement with poor lighting, wearing a Brazzers bucket hat. And I was just like, this is fucking hilarious. Like, I just thought it was really funny making these things, and I kept making them, and I made like, I ended up making 30 of these things. And so, that was kind of the inspiration, was again just embracing the absurdity of that entire prospect of him thinking about of him bearing witness to the horrors of this thing, where there's traits like Ponderosa Slaughterhouse, or Golden Corral Slot Pit, or Fly Orgy, and it really makes me laugh and smile to think about him having to interpret or reckon with that.
We've tweeted a little bit. Die with the most likes. I like your stuff, and I just wanted to say thank you for making it. I like this neat world of just walking around there, and I've always liked oncyber. I like the simplicity of the one click, and you're in a gallery. I like the easy, modular nature of it. How you can sell other, gallery infrastructures to other, give them away. I hope you guys keep doing it up, both of you, and let me know how I can help. Thanks so much.
Oh, fuck. Massive thank you for the kind words. Seriously, yeah, it's super nice and sweet to hear that people are, again, yeah, like, fucking with this stuff. It always fascinates me, and, like, it makes me so happy that anyone considers any of this at all, even, past a cursory glance. So I really appreciate that.
Just wanted to say props to Jules for creating an incredible meat world. I think you showed me this other day, and I thought that it was insane. It definitely fits Dai's art really well. And Dai, I love your art ever since we did that interview.
Thank you. Thanks, dude. Yeah, I'm blown away by the creation of this thing. Again, it's like creation breeds creation in many ways, and so, like, it's awesome to see everyone spinning off these, like, their own little worlds, their own little things that are either derivatives or remixes, or completely new manifestations based on the growth of the growth that we're all experiencing. So it's fucking awesome. And similar to you, all the interviews you're doing, those things are vital for this space. It's like they're always great listens, and it's always incredible to hear artists talk about themselves and what their process is. There's just not enough of it. So appreciate you, dude.
Yeah, thank you so much. I actually had a question about, I don't know if you answered this, but how did you come up with the fully fuckable flea market?
So I conceptualized that with Transient Labs. Those dudes are super rad. Like, they're very helpful. But the concept was the flea market, which I'd actually launched a online version of it with the book of scam replies that I wrote, called Negotiations with the Abyss, where people could then come in and trade, like, more or less something that took me a year to make for a shitty county fair prize, they were also hilarious, I think. But it was just kind of this take on, memes versus art in some ways.
Oh, I think I have one of those. Seize the Meats of Production.
Yeah, you do. I think you do. Yeah. So then, they suggested, let's make a version of this, of the flea market. And I said, well, if we do, it has to be fully fuckable. And they're like, yeah, we're on board. So those dudes, they rolled with it. And then that's when we kind of said, all right, we need a glory hole at this thing for the activation. We need, people reaching into this hole in order to pull these, like, pieces of Kohl's cash out to redeem things. And it was this whole fucking thing, man. It was crazy, dude. I keep thinking about how wild it was, and how so many people were just so kind and to attend, and so kind to, like, to experience that with me. It's just crazy to have that shared, memory with so many people.
But I wanted to ask, I first started seeing your poems when you were putting them on 01, and I really love them. I mean, I had seen you your writing on your site and the stories, but I don't know, it was just like very groovy to see that stuff that you wrote in that way. And I wanted to ask about them a little, to know, like, if that's something like a way that you've written for a while, like when you started doing that, but also, like, if you if there are poets that you dig, who are they?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's kind of funny, like as like things change in my life and time it becomes a little bit more difficult to manage, and like you're flying all over the place and just like in a million different things. Like I think that there was a time in my life when I was obsessed with creating the long form content. Like the first, like I think the first book I wrote, An Eye for an Eye, is like 90,000 words, and then there's a short story collection after that that I think is 85 or 90,000 words, and those were both written in just an absolutely relentless fury, like obsessively in those things, and kind of wanting to create this legacy that I knew would outlive me. And then as time went on, and I guess it was also molded towards, again, the attention economy that like is that kind of dictates how things are consumed. And I think that part of me, put so much fucking time into these books, and I was so obsessed with them, and like I love them so much. And they're the favorite things I've ever made. And for the longest time, like nobody read them. Like there was not a single reader. I don't think. Like I'm not even sure my I think my family may have read a couple of chapters politely. But so I started dabbling in poetry because it was just way easier for me to also be out and observing things and have my phone notepad or like a buck slip to be able to just write those things on, versus thinking that absolutely everything needed to be this like massive blown out fucked out tale. The poetry and the shorter prose, I think, are really fascinating to me too, because they leave a little bit more to the reader in order to interpret or consider, or kind of just like figure out what certain words mean, or certain like transitions or climaxes mean. So that's where I found the real beauty. And I think I do want to get back into long form writing at some point, but for right now I do just really find that trying to create really really impactful pieces in what are like 20 lines or something is really fun. In terms of poets, it's funny, I don't really read any poetry, like for the most part. Like for authors, I think that for the authors, I'm a huge Irving Welsh fan, Michel Houellebecq, Haruki Murakami, like kind of all those surrealist people. I'm trying to think about other ones. It's always tough to pull right when you're talking about them, but if you have any recos, Craig Clevenger, The Contortionist Handbook.
What about like Edgar Allan Poe?
No, I don't really I don't think I've ever read any Edgar Allan Poe outside of
It's very dark. I actually think
whatever
you'd
that
like
fucking
it.
one thing. Maybe I will have to do that. Like I've read a couple of Bukowski poetry collections that I think are in the same vein as some of the stuff that I write.
It'd
but it
be
was
probably the most obvious.
yeah,
He's less surreal. But
yeah, and it's funny because I came across those like because I've always loved his longer form things, Amon Ryan, Post Office, and all that, but I didn't know about his poetry until I finally got a Kindle and downloaded a couple of the books from my library, and I'm like, oh my god, shit, I write pretty similar to this fucker. So it was a big huge revelation, but he's an incredible author. So yeah, I was definitely felt good.
Right on. That's interesting. It makes sense that I don't know, like the poems that I read from you, they feel like they're in dialogue with other poems, with other poets, but like not in like a academic way or literary way, just like a translation of this thing that you do with all of the stuff that you make.
Yeah,
I'd love to make a die GPT and just like you train a model on all of your poetry and then have it shoot back some answers.
Dude,
that
I want nothing to do.
Yeah, no, the die don't do that. The die GPT.
Yeah. I've been asked that. People ask if like my responses and stuff are Chat GPT, and I'm like, fuck that. Like I never want that. Like I created. The beef brothko thing was
too bad.
Thing.
I'm training one right on you right now. So.
Nice, that's perfect. Well, as long as I'm not using it, anyone else can fucking use it. Hell yeah.
So one poet who I would say I get a similar vibe from you, not in really the imagery or the style, is but in like the haunting, the kind of haunting resonance of these very desolate moments or dead ends in life, is James Wright, who is just also terrific in style, I don't know if you're. I don't even know. Did you want to? Did you want to know other poets, or is this?
That's super dope. I
Or,
have my notepad out right now. I'm gonna grab their book if they have it at my library. It's kind of sparse sometimes, but I'm hoping they do.
I can
Cocaine's
send.
right. Okay.
I can send you ebook if you want. And the other.
Yeah, shoot and shoot me if you want to send me a DM with them. That would be sick too. I'll definitely check them out because I read all the time and it's a love of mine. So
I think you would dig him. And then the other one's
hell yeah.
the Maximus poems.
Okay. Cool.
But I don't know. Yeah, those are just a couple. But no, it's wild. I kind of suspected that you weren't like actually a poetry reader. But maybe that makes the poems cooler.
Yeah, well, I think like I appreciate that, and it's similar to I think my art. Like I got a C in one of my high school art classes and was described as vaguely adequate. So like I don't, yeah, it's like I kind of take pride in that because like I just brutalize my way through stuff, and it's just like something that has to come out of me, and hopefully it hasn't been again perverted or skewed in any way. It's just in its rawest form for people to consume.
Yeah, I know it's all very powerful work, and I'm gradually learning more about what you do. This space has been really terrific. Like,
oh, thank you so
to
much.
learn about your
I
stuff.
appreciate it.
Shout out to you, Di. Love the art. Stumbled upon you like very recently. Just two basic questions. A, are you still dropping active artwork? And then B, how does one collect?
those are such incredible questions because like I get those a lot, because most of my posts I never like banging the shill drum on my thread. I find it excruciating and insufferable, so I try to keep it towards like posting hilarity or just again like posting pictures of perhaps a urinal with ice in it that's like from my favorite dive bar or anything in that realm. So that's a great question. So currently like I don't really have anything on the schedule. Like I'm working on, some alpha, which is the fucking worst term to ever exist, but I'm going to use it here. I'm working on a fucking heaving project for next year that's going to be, I think, hilarious and really fucking crazy, and that will likely happen around NFT NYC. So I'm getting super stoked about that, and it's like kind of the biggest thing that I've worked on in terms of effort, in terms of conceptualization. So I'm pretty stoked about that. But otherwise, like, yeah, there's some shit on there's some like pretty accessible pieces from the county fair shitty prizes collection that people had to people had to trade books in for. But otherwise, yeah, like I'm like, I really obsess over making things that I just care about so immensely and so deeply, and that other people can also hopefully cherish in the same way. So I really limit, like I have quite a few editions out there, but like I really limit the amount of times that I drop because like I want the thing to be so perfect, and I want to take so much time to refine my craft and make sure that like the story behind it makes sense, and make sure that like I've dumped every fucking piece I've had into it because I never want to leave anything on the table. Like I want to be the fucking fully stocked buffet at a Golden Corral, and people are just in there and fucking all over that sneeze guard, ready to consume the beautiful contents of dying animals. So that's where I'm at with it. I really appreciate the question, and it's a great one. But yeah, nothing on the books right now.
Yeah, no. So my only question was on the Di's meat market with oncyber. So when you made that, I guess making that, is it something that is something that be kind of minted out or sent out to like your holders of your collections, to where they have this kind of world that they can kind of dress up or like be in as their own, sort of like Artifact did with the space pods and stuff like that? Is this something similar, or is this something that's just your open world and you just kind of share that on your website or something like that?
Oh, is that an on-cyber question? Well, yeah. I mean, for me,
Kind
for
of
me,
both,
it was.
yeah.
It's a little bit of both. Like, I mean, the on cyber, the dudes there were so nice, and Jules for building this thing. They kind of just approached me and said like, "Hey, do you want to talk about your art, and I'm always open to, subject people to my fucking stupid ass nasally drone Midwestern accent. So I'm so thankful for the people who have endured this for like an hour and 15 minutes. It's fucking insane. I've never listened to anything that I've done in the past because my insane Irish Catholic upbringing and guilt and shame won't allow me to endure my own voice. But they were nice enough to just build this out and just kind of have it be like a fuckable meat world that people can just kind of look around at and like chill and look at the pieces. Like all the pieces are like already sold in there, so it was more just kind of like a gallery, I guess, exhibition versus
Gotcha.
versus like exactly. Yep.
Got you. So have something that's more like a collectible that you sent out, and then people have it in their world, and they can kind of edit it to themselves.
Just one little question before we wrap up. For the books that you did with that had the flea market, the flea market was so quick. I missed it. I have a few of the books in it, but I wanted to ask: are you gonna? You'd mentioned you maybe would open up the flea market again. Are you gonna? Is that a thing?
Yeah, there are plans to reopen that flea market. I'm hoping that'll happen before the end of the year. But like that's so I work with Transit. Like I gotta give another shout to Transient because those dudes are like fucking machines, and they helped like construct the whole front end interface, and fucking back end interface. I mean, the whole thing. I like wrote all the copy and script and all, and like kind of illustrated it all. But I just have to find some time with them to to get that thing back up and running. I don't know how much effort it takes, but I've got a couple pieces socked away where I want to get that thing back open. So yeah, you're dead on there. I'm hoping to have that thing fully fuckable again, hopefully before the end of the year. But it keeps on getting pushed
Very close.
a little bit. So yeah. But yeah, I wanted to take a second, massive thank you to oncyber for building this incredible space, for allowing me to again plummet with you into the squirming coils of our shared dying animal and the carry-on corpse of rotting out in a highway median. It's been a super fucking fun hour 23, and I'm just super thankful that people ever want to listen to this shit or look at this shit or really again experience any of this at all. So very, very grateful, and just it's just really cool for somebody who again like assumed that I was gonna probably die in an ergonomically correct desk chair and then have my skin be the lube for the wheels for the next person. Doing this is way different, and so I'm still working that fucking stupid job, but probably hopefully not for forever. So a massive appreciate everybody for fucking with my art and looking at this stuff and considering it if even for a moment.